We'll do the live thing first. Like,
buddy. Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. This is your host Bigmark, and I'm here with my good buddy Zach Angus. Finally, it's great to finally have him on the show, and he's coming all the way from the Bahamas. Tell us a little bit about that, Zang. Like, how'd you get yourself down there?
So it's probably pretty similar to how most stories start. I met a girl, and then I followed her around the planet. And it hasn't taken me too many places yet because we're just, it's a newer relationship. We've been together for over a year now, but I went and visited her in Africa where she was teaching. And now the two of us have kind of got a teaching job here in the Bahamas for 1 year. And whether it gets extended to 2 or more, will probably be up to us, but for right now I'm spending the time in the tropical beautiful island of the Bahamas, Nassau specifically. So
right, man. Yeah,
not a bad place to be.
Yeah, for sure. What a year it's been though, eh?
Oh my goodness. And that's what I keep thinking about. I'm like, if I was back home, I would have all my friends and I'd be able to see, and then I'm like, but it's a pandemic, like it's a very challenging time that everyone's having, not being able to see as many people. So why not kind of go through that isolation or lockdown on an island?
For sure, no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, everyone's on a proverbial island kind of right now, you know what I mean? So it's super interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's kind of, that's so true. That whole feeling of, it would be nice to have people closer around, but you can't really even do anything. And it's like, oh man, what a time to be alive kind of thing. And, it's, I know it was a huge decision for you to go down there and stuff and pursue a career and everything. And, follow Kels down there and everything. And that's so cool. And it's always been super admirable. And again, it's the weirdest time. And like, what's going on around there? Like lately, kind of, are you guys like on full lockdown, or is it like, it like red zone?
Yeah.
We're like red zone here in Hamilton.
Yeah. I keep hearing like places in Southern Ontario just getting worse and worse, like just like around Toronto. But it started off really good in the Bahamas.
Okay.
Like crazy low cases, like in the teens. And then, a bunch of people started traveling up to Florida and then coming back, or Americans coming here. And it kind of got out of control about maybe 2 months ago. And only about 2 weeks ago, we got out of like full lockdown. So there was about a full month of you can go to work and that's it. So we would go to work, come home, and then on the weekend, you can't leave your property. Like you can't, like we have a gate at the front and we couldn't really like go outside the gate. Luckily we have access to the water, so we could go down and go swimming and things like that. But you even technically probably shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
So that might've been the worst of it in terms of, first of all, me feeling a little homesick. And second of all, just being trapped by these 4 walls,
Right. Well, I mean, yeah,
but to kind of go full circle now, it's opening up more and more almost weekly. So things were just locked down on Sundays. The curfew was 7, now it's 9. Like it's just opening back up because they need to, like they're quite desperate just economically.
Were you guys seeing like a lot of cases going on, or is it?
Yeah, so there was, and it's hard to compare. Like I don't have the exact numbers, but it's a much smaller population. So when they have, 100 in a day or 80 in a day, like that's
Right.
significant
Sure.
versus I think it's like
Right.
thousands now in
What'd you say it
Ontario.
was 21 miles by 7 miles, the island?
Yeah, the whole island. So
Wow.
it seems, well, it is tiny, but
Hmm.
it's
80
you still
cases.
need like a car to get around.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
exactly.
right.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
yeah, obviously, yeah, compared to even what we're seeing in Ontario and then other cases around the world and stuff and in the States. And I totally didn't even
Yeah.
really think about people like how far is Florida? Like,
Florida is, uh, I don't know. Again, I don't have exact numbers for you, but it's
sure, I mean,
close.
like a
It's
flight. Like,
too
is it like
close.
like a half-hour flight?
Yeah, it'd be like under an hour.
Wow.
And a lot of Bohemians have family there, and a lot
Okay.
of people from Florida will come here for like, a weekend trip. Like just they're very connected, and
Sure, I didn't even think
so
that.
it can be bad because Florida was also like really bad for their cases. So
So bad.
as soon as things open up, it's like, all right, let's go to Florida and bring back COVID. Like, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Or
but
let's go to the
there's
friggin' Bahamas if you're Floridian.
yeah.
Shit.
If you flow Rida, yeah,
Yo, if you're Florida, if you're from Boca
yeah.
Raton. Zach and I
Been
used to
there,
play basketball. Zach and I, for everyone listening, Zach and I used to play basketball together for a long time. Did we ever play together before high school? Me,
Oh, in
not
grade
really.
school? No, I don't. Maybe at like house league, but I don't
Maybe
think so.
house league. I didn't play rep because it was Mark who played rep. The other Mark that played rep with you,
Mhm.
like when we were young, and then
Yeah,
and then we played later. But anyway, Zach and I went to the same high school. We played basketball in one of our basketball tournaments throughout the years. We went down to Boca Raton, Florida,
yeah.
and
Dynamic duo.
oh yeah, it was great. Me and Zach down there working it, getting fifth place.
Yep,
I
fifth
friggin' like
place.
blew my knee out essentially that one time because we were playing against that team with the had like a fullback, like he was definitely on the football team too. The kid was built like a fire hydrant
Yeah.
and just out there. I think that's how they can rock that in the States, right? Because I feel like it's more physical in high school. You can be like just
Mhm.
like a big body and play center and
Yeah,
not be tall. Like yeah,
yeah,
I'm 6'2", I play center, but I'm fucking like 300 and I'll friggin'
yeah,
smoke somebody. Like you know what I mean? Like I feel like they
yeah.
could just get away with that in the States. So it's a guy like that. He's boxing me out. I'm jumping up, and he like continues to box me out. The guy's like washing me out, like taking my legs out, and then I just land and just hyperextend my friggin' left knee so bad. And then took a
Yeah.
day off and played like the next like we had the day off in the tournament because it was like a Christian tournament, so we had no Sunday. And then I played
Yeah,
Monday. Like, what am I thinking? It didn't
yeah.
honestly. Thank God, knock on wood. It didn't really give me many more issues like throughout my it friggin' killed. I thought I was any I mean, have you ever like injured your knee?
Knock on wood. I've been really lucky with the knees, but obviously like ton of ankle stuff, which is pretty
Sure.
standard. But
Knee shit is
not too much in the
scary.
knee.
Like I've done many like my ankles are friggin' ruined.
Yeah,
But knee stuff is scary. Like I did one in at university too where I like kind of hyperextended. It's just such an unnatural feeling, right? And you're like
yeah.
you've also just seen so many injuries of other guys and you're like, well, I'm done. Like
Terrifying. Yeah,
it's my knee's done. I'm
bends the
over.
wrong way. Yeah, bends too far the wrong way.
Not
Yeah,
supposed to do that.
it's it's super scary. And like I think about it now,
Yeah.
and uh, like I'm like, you tweaked your knee and then you took a day off. Why would you think about playing? Why would you ever think like that's my perspective now? But
Oh yeah.
back in high school, first of all, like with our parents,
Right,
I
right.
feel like our dads were pretty similar. Like tough
Sure.
it up, like get out there. But our coach was also kind of like that as well. But the amount of times that I sprained my ankle, whether it was like mild or severe sprain, didn't matter.
Right.
Mid game,
Yeah.
went off, taped it up, went back on, thinking I'm like the toughest kid ever, and like, oh, look at me, like, look at me, dad, look at me, crowd, like, I'm hobbling, I can't even walk, and I'm still and it's like, what an idiot, like, what absolute moron I was.
Oh no.
I
Yeah.
like, I'm
But there
gonna
wasn't
be
an option.
feeling that for the next 40 years, and I feel it now, like, and so my perspective has shifted so much.
Right.
um, but
What's
now I'm worried if I have a kid, they're going to be soft as hell. Cause I'm like,
right.
no, don't do that.
Well, it's interesting because I mean, like at the time, it wasn't an option not to keep going. Like if you got hurt, like
Yeah.
and if you could even like, and there was stuff on TV like you'd see Kobe go out there with his busted Achilles and stuff and
Yeah.
shoot free throws,
Right.
and everyone's like, "Oh, this guy's the man." So it's like it was like kind of part of the culture, probably even a little bit more. But
Yeah.
it just wasn't even an option to be like, all right, like I can't, like if I can play, I'm gonna play, even if that like makes my injury worse. You can't like.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You've coached young kids. We
Mhm.
were young kids at one point.
I think so.
At
Yeah, a
one
while
point, I
back.
know I can say for sure I was. Um, but like if you told kids like, hey, you can get hurt in doing this sport, whatever sport it is, football, basketball, friggin' swimming, who knows?
Mhm.
You can get hurt and potentially feel that injury like for the rest of your life. You can't like really go around like telling that to kids, I feel. Because number
They
one,
wouldn't even. Yeah.
they wouldn't even understand, right? They
Yeah.
wouldn't even know. And then two, it's just like no one would ever play sports.
Yeah.
But you kind of wonder, is that kind of happening a little bit today, where people are going, well,
Yeah.
I could play video games and not get like injured and like chill and
Right.
have and
Okay.
see my buddies and whatever, or I could sweat and work hard and whatever, right?
Burn calories.
You know what I mean? Like play with my
I
friends,
could
like
move.
I
Yeah.
want to throw a ball in the basket. Like, you're weird.
I could talk to people in person.
But we even
Do
saw this, and
this.
we talked about this a lot of times. Like we even saw this in high school. Like the years, like every year, kind of like as you'd go down the line, less and less
Mhm.
kids seemed interested. I felt.
Yeah. It. Yeah, and like I don't know. The counter argument I think is, at least in like the States, is like, man, it is such a business. So I still see Kobe go out with his Achilles and shoot those foul shots, and I think like I respect that.
Sure.
But when something happens and they don't, or they do a small tweak and they stay out for 4 to 6 weeks, I get it. Like
Right.
they're
Right.
making millions of dollars and
Right.
they could be losing millions of dollars if they
Or
don't take that rest.
or even
Um,
these what do they call them? Like Kawhi and stuff, just not even playing, not injured. What do they
right.
call them?
Oh shoot, yeah.
You know what I'm talking
Where
about,
they just like take games off. Yeah, I know what you're talking about though.
right?
Um,
Maintenance or
but
something, recovery.
yeah, and it's just it's crazy to think like they're playing at such a high level and they're playing 82 games a year. Like, yeah, they need a little bit of a break.
Sure.
Like, and I don't know. It kind of reminds me of why it's so amazing what LeBron is doing, because he's been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
He's made sure that he takes care of himself. He's played a lot of those seasons. He's played either full or almost full seasons.
100%. 100%.
And it's mind blowing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But to go back to like them being worried about a tweaked knee,
Right.
In the NBA, like it's the same in high school. Like if you tweak your knee and you're a top 10 player in your class,
Mm-hmm.
you could be losing out on millions of dollars if you push it to try to play, because in 3 years you could be in the league, or you're supposed to be in the league. Like
right.
it's wild now, these rankings and these high school followings.
Right.
Like you see overtime is like a full-on business now.
Yeah.
And like it's more popular than college basketball.
Sure.
Watching these high school players.
And it's interesting, they kind of have their whole careers just like mapped out for them too, right? It's kind of like, all right, you're going to play this high school career and you can go to college for a year, you can go to the NBA. And it's almost like, I wonder too, also if kids kind of see like, oh, if I start playing basketball, like either I'm going to the NBA or I shouldn't even play at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair point.
Right.
Yeah.
Where it's all or none. Like even I've noticed that in the music industry too, where people are like, I don't want to learn how to play guitar. Like I don't want to be a fucking professional musician. Well, it's like, well, just give it a go. It'll be good for you to learn. Same with all the values of sport, to learn that.
Yeah.
And then if things really work out, great. Then like, and this is obviously for like younger kids, but if things really work out, great, then you become a pro. But I feel like now, like with all those sports academies, all the specialization, it's just like, It's either you're going, like, the goal is pro or not.
Yeah, that sucks. I hope that too many people aren't doing that, because now you're losing out on these like other, what it could be anything, like other skills, other friend groups, other experiences, right? Like
Sure.
if like I didn't go pro in basketball, but it's like changed my entire life,
For sure.
and it's foundational for the person that I am today.
Yeah.
And my best friends I met playing basketball, like me and you played basketball together. Like it's
Right.
just such a big part of my life. And
Absolutely.
the same with, I didn't play too many other sports, but when I was younger I played all the sports, and
Right.
those teach you skills that you can translate to basketball, or that you can translate to whether you want to be a personal trainer or
For sure.
just have relatively good personal fitness. Like
Mhm.
it's there's so many skills there. And the same with learning guitar. Like why would you
For
just
sure.
give up because you're not going to be pro? If you
It's
enjoy it,
strange.
do it.
Right. And that's what it's all about. And I feel like when we were kids, like I mentioned before, both our dads were, really involved in basketball, like,
Mm-hmm.
for their whole entire lives, essentially. So I feel like, it kind of made sense for them to get us involved too. But it was just kind of like, hey, you're going to be playing basketball now. It wasn't like, oh, you're going to play till this point or like whatever. It was just like, hey, you're going to just play basketball. And then all of a sudden it became like every weekend was a tournament. And then, you get to high school and you start playing for your high school team. And once that's over, you start playing rep again. And it's just like literally like 365 basketball. You and I are
Yeah.
probably the same way. That's all you thought about. It's like
Yep.
you just didn't even really have to think. You're like, yeah, what are you up to next week? Oh, I got a tournament, 100%. Didn't even know what tournament or where, but you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a tournament coming up.
Yeah.
And that was great. I mean, you can kind of say like maybe that kept us from some things, kept us from some bad things, maybe kept us from some other experiences as a kid, but I'd never trade it for the world. But it kind of, again, just sets you up for all those things, all the values, all those different things you can learn, being coachable, working with others, not only just like meeting people and creating friendships that'll last forever, but just being able, again, like you said, the smallest thing of just being able to, like, hey, if we joined a basketball league, boom, all of a sudden there's a couple times a week of doing like great cardio, great workout, just doing that,
Yeah.
knowing that we know how to play basketball and it's going to be fun. You know what I mean? To think that it's like a workout. Whereas now you get people today that if they'd never done that, like when I was personal training, some of my clients, they'd never played a sport in their life. And it's really hard to kind of teach someone that is like unathletic to do. And it's not like we were doing crazy.
It's just like coordination. Yeah.
That's it. It's just coordination. And like that stuff became so ingrained in us because we challenged that by playing the sport and doing stuff that's, because sport in essence is just doing a simple task, but like making it hard, right? Like golf, the idea of golf is really easy. You hit a ball into a hole, but then you make the ball this big. And
let's not say really easy.
Well, no. I mean, just the concept. Literally, it's just like, hey, you have to put this ball in that hole. That's it. Same with basketball. You have to put this ball in the basket, but we raised the basket up 10 feet in the air. We put four other guys on the court, like a bunch of 7-footers out there to go in front of you. Like, it's about making a simple thing hard, right?
Yeah.
And
we put this big body of water there for you to hit it into 17 times in a row.
Right? Yeah. Big hill here.
Let's just go to the next hole.
Why is there sand? Why?
We're in a goddamn desert. What's going on here?
Ontario, bro. We're in the friggin' woods, and there's a friggin' sand dune.
This is not the expected terrain.
Pardon. But again, we challenge that from a very young age, right? Like being young and learning just to like walk, essentially, like maybe like a year or two prior to like picking up a basketball and playing. You know what I mean? Like it's been a part of our lives like forever, and then we can always go back to that and whatever. But again, I'm not necessarily as in touch, especially with the kids as you, because you're teaching them, you're coaching them. But again, I just look at it and I'm scared of like the academies that have started and stuff, because I know if I was a kid now, I'd for sure have gone to one of those academies, guaranteed. and
Yeah.
you know, like maybe got burnt out. Like some of these kids I feel like are going to burn out, because I even saw it happen when we
Hate
played.
basketball.
Like
Yeah.
guys that played forever,
Yeah.
they kind of got forced to, and their parents were like, play, and then all of a sudden they're
Yeah.
like, you know what, I kind of don't want to
And
play. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
I can easily say that I love basketball unconditionally,
Sure.
and there was definitely parts where I hated it. Like towards the end of university, I was like, I hate this. This is awful.
Oh
Like
no,
I don't want to like and
dude.
because it was like part
Same
of
with
that
football, though.
burnout
I
that you're
have to
talking
say,
about.
it's the exact
Yeah,
same with
like
football.
it was like the season is quite long, so
Right.
we have the season ends, you give
Sure.
yourself like a week or two or whatever, you get back in the gym, you start doing 2 a days with shooting in the morning, do a lift, and then you'll go do like skills or play at night,
Right.
and then the summer hits and now you're doing your summer training, and so I was doing like Monday was like shooting in the morning, and then we had practice. Wednesday was the same, and then Tuesday, Thursday was like with our trainers doing lifts and like taking care of our body.
Right.
Friday I would drive to Hamilton to do men's league, and then I think Sunday I had like another men's league or something like that.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
it was just like wild, and then the summer ends and then the season starts and it's like, where is the break? And you do that
Sure.
for 4 years and you start to get a little sick of it. But
But at the same point, you knew when you were doing it, you knew if you couldn't take that summer off, right? Because you knew other guys were doing it. You knew you had to be there.
yeah,
Same with football. The guys stayed in London, fucking continued to work out, because we knew if like, not that we would just go off and not work out, but even if we went to another place, guys who stayed at the school would be getting better. Like you're not only like
mhm,
trying to be better yourself, some of your teammates you're kind of competing against a little bit too. Like, university
yeah,
sports, that's how it works. Any team really, there's
nice,
always like another kind of person you're competing with on your own team, and then all
yeah,
the other guys in the conference or in the league or whatever you want to call it, right? You just knew that they were out
yeah,
there, and it talks about all the, you talk about Larry Birds and your Michael Jordans. They always say like, I was driven to train by knowing that my opponent was out there doing the
yeah,
same thing, or even more, thinking that
yeah,
I'm not going to leave the court till I do 1,000 shots because I know my opponent's doing 500
hmm,
or
yeah,
whatever. You know what I mean? Just that mental stuff, because you can't really
yeah,
prove some of that shit.
yeah, yeah,
But
man. And it starts to make me think about, and I think we've talked about this before, but the like sports psychology side of it
mhm,
and how important that is and how uh, big it is, especially when like recruiting.
mhm,
So when I was like helping Jamie coach at Redeemer, it was like looking at high school players.
mhm,
Luckily, I didn't have to do a lot of the recruiting, but like I couldn't fathom like looking at this player and being like, he's good, like he's better than his high school peers.
right,
Is that because he's quicker and he's stronger, or you know, is that because he's actually talented? How competitive is he? Does he actually want it? Like, does he put in any work?
mhm,
Like, is he the lazy guy at practice, but he's just more gifted? Like, all these other things that factor in.
right,
And because I've seen so many players at university like that come in, I'm like, whoa, this guy is so raw, but so much potential. Like
sure,
he can windmill, dunk, like drop step, like he's like 6'3", super long. He's
right,
great defender. His
right,
shot is terrible, like all whatever, like all
yeah,
these like factors, but you're like, but we can work on these things.
mhm,
And then I saw that some of these same players 4 years later with almost no improvement. Like I was mind blown. I was like, this guy's gonna. I don't know why he's playing here. He should be in the States, and then he
right,
should be in the league. And like, and they just didn't develop. And I think a big part of it was the mental aspect, right?
sure,
Like not not being able to learn quick enough, not being able to adapt quick enough, maybe not wanting it enough.
mhm,
Um, I don't want to say they didn't work hard because I think they all worked hard, but
yeah,
maybe not working smart, maybe not working as hard as they think they need to, right? Like sometimes you think you're working hard and then somebody else comes in and does double what you just did and then
right,
does it again and you're like, well, or they work out for 2 hours and you work out for an hour and you're like, what the, right? And they just kind of show you that there's another limit.
mhm, mhm,
Um, and you'll hear like some people go extreme with it. Like I think David Goggins is a really cool, interesting guy, but
Sure.
I think he goes a little extreme with how much more he says is available. Like
With
he'll
everything.
break both knees and his arm and his ankles, and he'll be like, yeah, and then I'll just run a marathon after.
Right.
And the next day you're like, what?
I know.
But the premise or the idea that he's getting across, that there's more in the tank, there's more you're capable of, like when you hit your limit, like you haven't,
Right.
it is something that a lot of people I don't think explore, and then they say they're working hard, or they've convinced themselves they were working hard when there was more to give.
Right. I feel like that comes from an extreme place too. I think that's why you get your Goggins dudes, you get your Jocko Willink dudes. It comes from seriously, like you've stripped away every other kind of, layer of your soul, and you're getting right down to like a survivalist scenario. If you can get yourself to there, your body's capable of very extreme changes, very extreme abilities, or whatever you want to call it. At that point, it's amazing. Adrenaline stuff, like lifting cars and stuff, and just that comes. But it's tough to coach that to like a kid and not put him off the sport.
I don't know if you can.
Right. And that's the thing, is that essentially it comes down to like just natural ability. And that I feel like as a recruiter, you're trying to see through the mistakes, or see through some of the inconsistencies, and find that nugget of natural ability, and how big that nugget is. And maybe you've seen guys with some of it, but again, there's that cultivation aspect of it, right? You can't just be like, here's this like natural gift, and then just go with it. Some guys, they gifted this big, huge nugget of natural ability, and they don't really have to do too much, and they can still be amazing. But those are unbelievably rare cases. Again, even your LeBron James, the guy works harder potentially than almost anyone else in the league too. Like no one ever, no one also says that, right? Exactly. Like, he's the best, not just because he's been naturally gifted since high school, but because he's in the friggin' gym, still hard, smart, basketball IQ, whatever, all that stuff. He keeps his nose clean too, even off the court. Like you never hear anything fucking bad about LeBron James. Unless you're talking to the haters or whatever. But again, that's the thing, is that he cultivated that, right?
I'm not like, I genuinely am not a big LeBron fan, but I have so much respect for him because of like what he's done, what he's continued to do, what he's doing at the highest level, for so long. Like it's super impressive. He's breaking records, he's breaking stats, like the statistics of once you've played so many minutes in the NBA, the quick and drastic decline of their performance and their career. And he passed that years ago. He passed those amount of minutes played in the NBA years ago, and he's still, and you'll see it all over like Instagram and stuff, but he's still performing at a MVP level. He's still a top 5 player in the league. Like
sure. And you know what? I think in our culture, society, even just within basketball, we always want to pick like who's the best, and LeBron James was crowned the king. You know what I mean? So,
and he lived up to it. That's the cool
100%. I mean, like there's some. I mean, there's 100% too, right? Like when you're so young, dealing with all that, forget it. But again, and it's not like his career's been like all roses either, right? He's had a lot of challenges and all the stuff that happened in Cleveland. And it kind of left everyone on the hook, and just like
he's taken a lot of L's in finals. Like I would have killed. That would have eaten me up. But he just keeps coming back and going to the finals again, and 100%. He wins some of them, not many, but like
right. But exactly. He's won some. He's got some MVPs. But you know what I mean. Like it's tough to live up to the best, because you're obviously just going to be under scrutiny for forever. Every little move you make is just going to be scrutinized. And I think I'm with you in the same boat. Like, I'm not like I respect LeBron James for sure. Everything he does, 100%. And, there's other guys in the league that are hard, working super hard too. And, doing amazing things. And, even in the past too, there's been guys, and, we talk about all that, like the reserved rest periods or whatever, when the guys, we should look that up anyway. When the guys take a break in the NBA, we're stupid. But when the guys take a break, like you look back and you hear like Larry Bird and stuff talk about that, and they're like, we'd never do that. And
Load management, that's what it is.
Load management, nice, 100%
Yeah.
load management. And there was probably cases of guys like being like, oh, I tweaked my ankle, and being like, I'm gonna take this game against the Bullets off or whatever. Like, who knows? Like, back in the day. But but that was the thing, is this weird pride too of being like, I'm not gonna be a pussy or whatever, like you want to call it. Like that's the thing. Like, and I think we come from a weird generation too of players where all of our coaches came from like a really old school.
Yeah.
And then like we were like kind of like in the new school and like surrounded by all these people doing stuff, and there's maybe some younger coaches trying some new stuff, and we just were surrounded by people who were like, get after it, like work hard as shit, and something good's gonna happen kind of thing. But that's the other thing about different coaches too, right? They're obviously gonna bring what they learned from when they played to the table. And
they only know what they know, right? Like, so and I really enjoyed coaching with Jamie because he often understands that. He'll go like, what are you guys seeing? Like,
sure,
because he only can see what he sees. He only knows what he knows. So he tries to get good people around him, to help like widen his perspective or give him, different ideas.
Sure.
But there's definitely, I was just thinking about this. Someone is definitely going to be listening to this like within the first 3 minutes and be like, it's load management, you idiots. For like sure. 20 minutes. Load management.
Yeah, when the guys take a rest.
We got there. When they get sleepy or something.
Yeah, it's when they just pull a JFK. That's what we used to call on the football field. If like the other team was like driving down the field and you're just like, what the fuck? And then a guy's like, oh, I hurt my ankle. He goes down. Trainers come out. They look at him. They're like, yo, what's up? He's like, yo, just fucking kidding. JFK. and it like stops all the momentum of the game. It's brutal. But anyway. But yeah, right? Like, it's that new style. I think I mean, if you're going to be a head coach, you're going to want to have people around you that are going to have different perspectives, I feel, right? The last thing you'd want to be is just have a bunch of the same as you.
Depends on the coach.
Okay, so what would you say ideally? So if you're a head coach.
Yeah, I think that's the ideal situation, but I think a lot of coaches have egos, and those egos drive their decisions, and they go, you know what, Mark over here, I know he's going to agree with everything I say, and I know he's not going to give me any flack, and I know he's a good guy, and I like him, so I'll give him a little side paycheck. All right, Mark, do you want to come coach with me? Right?
Okay.
And so they develop this circle that's just kind of raising or boosting their ego.
Just yes men.
A bunch of like yes men. Yeah, exactly. And it can be really frustrating. It can be really detrimental to the players too, right?
Oh my gosh, sure.
They can start to see it. Like, I remember when I was playing, one of my assistant coaches would always just be like, just do it like this guy. Just do it like this guy. I'm like, you are so biased towards this other person. Like, it's not even funny. Like, no one could live up to this other person. So yeah, that's my perspective on it. I think I've seen in my career both styles of coaches, and it's more beneficial. I think what Jamie's doing, and Jamie's doing a really good job. And the programs, like, I think every year it's got some new record that it's beating. Like literally that team used to win 0 games every year for like multiple years.
Right.
Like, that's crazy.
Oh,
like, he just
the
worst team. And then like the one year they got like 7 wins, and the school lost their mind. Like, they were like, there was a like festival, there was a parade.
Big
parade. Fireworks everywhere. And then the next year they got like 10, and then the year after that they made the playoffs, and then it's been a wild ride. And he's done a lot with it. It's tough. It's a tough place to kind of recruit and things like that.
Sure. I mean, and again, you know what I mean? I think, Jamie's done a lot of stuff for that school, and just his career and being able to, because he was kind of probably midway through his coaching career when we had him as a coach ourselves, and then to kind of watch him grow and evolve and do all that is really
in
cool
high
to
school.
see. Sorry, like
Yeah.
when did he start coaching, kind of thing?
Like he was pretty early in his
Okay.
career when we had him in high school. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So he was going through his challenges then. My gosh, had a crazy challenge with us even. But then again, right. But then just to see things evolve and to see what he's done with that program is fascinating. And again, you made a great point that he was kind of he was able to kind of see and be like, hey, what talk to his assistant coaches and be like, all right, what are you guys seeing? Because that's what I think you need to have. And we've played for a lot of the same coaches, but most of my coaches have been like really intense dudes, super fiery, like yell at you, like go nuts, and usually they had an assistant coach that was like nice, and he'd be like, all right, like this is what he meant, or like stop crying, this is how it's going to be. Right. And it's interesting because I feel like that's a fine line, because you can go like too far on each end. But I remember one of my rep teams I played for, in elementary school before high school, was like super intense head coach, really, really intense. This was like blessed, like the year under you guys, super intense. Okay. And then one of our assistant coaches was like the nicest guy ever. And it was like a really good balance. Like it wasn't like just like an emotional thing. Like there was a lot of like good, like coaching going on. However, they were both like ex-football players, which is really interesting. They both like it was a running back for the Ticats at one point, and the other they used to play for the Alouettes, like back in the day too. It's really interesting. I think we used to have our practices were like full on, like he'd bring the ladder out, and this is like grade 6, 7, 8. The ladder would come out. He'd have like medicine balls, dude. He'd have us doing layups with medicine balls, bro.
Whoa, that's wild.
And like crazy. And then all of a sudden you'd get a ball back and like throw it through the backboard, because you'd be like, why are we doing this anyway? And he'd have like the pad.
He had you shooting threes with medicine balls.
Dude, we were taking just air balls. But he'd have like the tackle pad. So there's like a pad in football that you can have so you can like hit the players, and he'd bring that out and smoke us. Like this is in grade school. Yeah. But
I think that's awesome. I think that might be a little too young for some of those things.
Yeah,
but
bro. It was
I remember seeing
screaming at us and like just doing like, it was like intense. And I talked to some of my other buddies that were on the team, and we were like terrified of practice. And it was just like, oh my God. I remember we'd go and we'd be on our way to practice. And my one buddy, Mark, you know him, his dad used to come pick us up, and he'd always have the same radio station on. And you know how radio stations basically play the same thing? Yeah. It would always be like the same few songs, and it would just be like this whole ramp up. And anytime I hear the song now, it still kind of fucks with my head.
You're like associated with this terrible practice.
Yeah, I just have dissociative moment, and I just can't even feel my legs.
You would like throw the ball at your head at practice, and then you hear that song, and you're like ducking everywhere.
Yeah, for real, man. You just see that pad come out of nowhere, and just like, But again, finding that balance is super crucial. I find if you have that like really intense coach too, though, right? Like that's the thing.
Yeah, but like I guess just going back to it, it's like the point I was trying to make is like I find the sports psychology super interesting, and I don't understand it. Like I haven't broken it down. I don't have the answer. Like I still don't know why this player and this player, why he ends up being better than player B. Sure. And it's so hard to read. And not that I have a ton of experience coaching, but I've been coaching for a couple of years now. And I don't understand how some guys can spend 4 years and it's still not, just understand the simplest concepts. Or some other guys can spend like 4 weeks and they got it all. They figured it all out.
Sure.
There's just so much that goes into it.
Well, you talk about
an roller coaster.
Oh my gosh, 100%. And you talk about even, especially like university or college athletics, right? Yeah. Like These guys are like in their early 20s, going through all kinds of shit. Maybe their friggin' girlfriend broke up with them. You know, maybe their friggin' grades suck. Like all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're like, "Why did you hit your jump shot, bro? Like, what's wrong with you?"
And
right?
your peak like testosterone and everything. You're just
all that stuff.
a hothead, like ready to go.
There's another guy that comes up there, a rookie comes on the team who's a friggin' stud, and all of a sudden you're like, "What the hell am I doing?" Like for everyone,
you have like no concept of the ego, like at that point either. Well, at least I didn't. I wasn't like, oh, why am I upset with this rookie that's getting more minutes or whatever that just hit the shot? Like at the time, I was like, no, just screw him. Like he sucks.
Right.
Instead of being like, why did I think that? Like, why do I think he sucks? Oh, because I'm insecure about my abilities, or I'm scared that he'll take my spot.
Totally, 100%. And you just never really know. And it's like, it's kind of like sometimes your position isn't so secured. So everyone listening, Zach used to play basketball at the University of Guelph, and at that level, you start to see that stuff to happen a little bit more, right? Because you're on the team for a few years, and you're seeing people come in. Maybe you've seen someone come in and wash out, or whatever.
Man.
Right?
Yeah, it's a trip. Like or you play high school and you see someone and you're like way better than them, or way worse. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. And then you both go to university and you see them at university and you're like, this guy was way worse than me. I still think he's way worse than me, and he's killing it. Or he's, because he just fits into that system, or he does exactly what his job is.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe I'm trying to, be Kobe when I'm really, a Stockton.
Paulus.
Right? Like Greg Paulus. Greg Paulus.
Dude.
That's my ultimate comparison. Let's go.
Hey, he's coaching at University of Buffalo. You should. I talked to Scott Mallon. He said he's going to try and get on the staff.
So top 5 Duke players of all time: Greg Paulus. Let's go. Mick Roberts.
Greg Paulus. Greg Paulus.
And those fill the rest as Greg Paulus. Yeah.
Sheldon Williams.
That's a squad right there.
Zubek.
We've had some gems.
Every NBA bust.
There was some kid that we had that this is random, but he like stole laptops and he got kicked off the team and he went to some other school. Man, but he was decent. Yeah, we have some unique players go through Duke.
Oh baby, that's what it's all about.
Like Roberts, Paulus. Yeah, that's a dynasty.
Oh hell yeah,
starting of a dynasty.
Oh man, yeah. For everyone listening, Zach and I are big Duke fans. We've always bonded over that and all the wins, all the absolute wins. Banners that they.
Have we ever lost?
And will continue to hang. They've never lost. Coach K has never lost a single game. So. He's won every single game, including every gold medal
coach of all time. He's amazing.
Yeah.
He's the reason LeBron's so good. Because he coached him one summer.
He saw him at a camp. There was a camp, and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And that's it. And that's why
he coached him for a couple of weeks on the U.S. national team, where he probably just said, "Do whatever you want," and that's why he's the greatest.
If you look at LeBron's career, it made a serious shift after the first time he was coached by Coach K. As soon as he was coached by K,
did very little before that. I don't even know if I knew about him until after that.
No one ever heard of him. Even in high school, he was kind of under the radar.
Yeah, like Leitner, one of the best players ever to grace the NBA. Like, just, all Coach K.
Most hated player potentially of all time. Hey, he was on that dream team, though. Leitner.
Yeah.
The 92.
He's in the back.
Dude,
way in the back of the photo.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Put him on the end.
He's like 19 or whatever.
Yeah, we can crop him out of the photos.
Have you ever seen that the other Dream Team documentary about the Lithuanian team?
No, I have not.
Bro, unbelievable if you can find it. So they did this wicked documentary. I don't know who put it together, but it's called The Other Dream Team. So 1992 Barcelona Olympics. That's the Dream Team. Michael, Bird, Magic, just like everybody, Barkley, just like everyone was on this team. And obviously they crushed everybody. Like disgusting, like teams not even scoring 50 points. like getting dummied. And
Yeah.
obviously, but everyone was down. Like all these other teams were like, "Oh, cool!" Like Michael Jordan.
Yeah, they're like asking for autographs before the game.
While he's dunking on them, they're like, "Hey, can you friggin'?" They get the rebound.
It's just quick.
They're just
quick
pulling
signature.
the pen out as they're getting posterized. But anyway,
maybe not right now.
No.
Maybe not the best time.
Nah, maybe later. I'll catch you after the game. But in those Olympics, Lithuania actually had a team. So, and up until 91, Lithuania was actually part of the Soviet Union. So it was like a really big deal. So basically after World War II, the Soviet Union annexed Lithuania. They never really wanted to have anything to do with the Soviet Union. Obviously, the Soviet Union was terrible, all the communism, all that stuff. And Lithuania always tried to be a free state and all this stuff. And they had labor camps and all this stuff. And all the Lithuanians would like play basketball. They would like figure out a way to like put up a little shitty rim. And that's like what like gave them their sanity. And that's kind of why there's such a big tradition of basketball in Lithuania. And so 1988 Olympics come along and the Soviet Union is playing the US in the final. And this is like 88. This is like middle of the Cold War. It's like the Soviet Union in America, right? And this was before you were allowed to have professionals. So I think it was like, I think 92 was like the first summer of games that you're allowed to have professionals. Because up until that point, you're only allowed to have amateurs. Right, because it was the Olympics were like an amateur thing. Yeah, so until this point, you couldn't be a pro and do the Olympics. So it would be all university guys. Like that would be the national team. Would be like all uni guys, maybe some older dudes that just didn't make it pro, and a couple younger dudes. But it would basically the national team would be like an all-star team of NCAA. So anyway, they're playing the Soviet Union, and so 4 out of 5, the starting 5 of the Soviet Union are actually Lithuanian. Like they're nationally from Lithuania, but they have to play for the Soviet Union. And this is like Arvydas Sabonis. There's another like what's his name? His son now plays in the NBA. He was like this. I'm just gonna look it up. He was basically this guy. Like he was like 7 foot.
Donovich or something.
I want to say he was like 7, like 4. He was like a little bit taller, but he was like one of the only guys who could really give Shaq like a run for his money. So yeah, Arvydas Sabonis, that was his name. So his son is actually in the NBA now. Sabonis.
Yeah, on the Pacers.
Played for Syracuse, I think.
No, I thought he went to Gonzaga, and now he's
Gonzaga,
on
maybe.
The Pacers.
Yeah. Gonzaga, yeah. So his dad actually was like unbelievable, right? So like he was they said he was like the Lithuanian Larry Bird, like a 7'4" Larry Bird. Like he could shoot. He was like he was really mobile. But anyway, so all these guys were playing for the Soviet Union. They ended up actually beating the States. So guaranteed that's a big reason why the American Olympic Committee was like, can we get some pros? I guarantee you, because they're like, we can't have this happen again. We can't be losing. Look at all these pros we have. We have all these pros because we're the home of the professional leagues.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that was like a big part of it. But anyway, so the Soviet Union friggin' beats the States, blah, 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 goes on. Meanwhile, all this is happening in like the actual political forum. Essentially, like democracy is like rising in Europe. Like the Berlin Wall fell in 89. Soviet Union like went through all its shit, like with Chernobyl and all that stuff, and basically fell in 91. And so that means Lithuania was freed, and they're stoked. But basically, the Soviet Union like pulled the rug out on Lithuania. They're like, all right, you're free, but we're taking everything, like all the infrastructure.
Yeah.
There was like some like small skirmishes and stuff, and a lot of stuff got like kind of like machine gunned and like destroyed a little bit, which is sad. But that's basically Lithuania was like kind of left with nothing. And so now it's like 91, the Olympics are coming up, and they're like, hey, like we'd love to get a team together. And so there's this other guy that was playing for the Lithuanian national team. His name was Šarūnas Marčiulionis. super phenomenal player. He was like 6'4". He used to play for Golden State. So they actually like remember the coach of the Golden State Warriors back in the day.
Oh, Kerr? Oh,
No,
back
this is
in the day.
back in the day. Coach,
Uh,
I'm just looking in the 90s. So this is pretty low tech here. I'm just like looking up on my phone. Don Nelson.
okay.
You know Don Nelson?
No.
You probably recognize him to see him. Super cool guy.
Yeah.
Really well known basketball coach. Him and his son were actually like going to recruit, and they were like there was the European Championship was hosted in Lithuania, and Lithuania actually won the championship. So again, they have like they're stacked. They have all these great players. So Don Nelson and his son try to recruit Sarunas Marciulionis. However, it's still the Soviet Union, so they can't actually they can't bring him out. So this is before the Soviet Union actually fell. So the Soviet Union's like, we're not gonna we'll either let you leave. Like Gary Kasparov was this chess player, and they let him kind of come and go. He was really one of the only Russians who was actually allowed to come and go. But just because they're communists, they can be like, no, you're not allowed to leave. So basically, Sarunas Marciulionis had to go in front of like all these panels of people and be like, I want to go to America to like pursue my basketball career and, look good and he's Lithuanian too. He doesn't want to be Russian, but he's going like, oh, I'm going to look good for the country of Russia and the Soviet Union and go and perform. And he had to put on this show kind of thing. And literally Gary Kasparov had heard about all this going on. And he goes like, Sarunas, you're either going to be here and you're going to be able to go and pursue your dreams and be a basketball player, or they're going to send you to Siberia. Like it was literally down to that. Because that's what they did back then. They just sent you to labor camps. They didn't give a shit. My family's Lithuanian. My grandfather's my grandfather's brother, so like my great uncle, his neighbor got sent to Siberia. So he freaking killed himself because he thought he was going to be next. Like this was like a real deal. And they would send you for anything. They'd be like, yeah, your farm looks nicer than this guy's farm. Get the fuck out of here. Like everyone was freaking scared and paranoid, anxiety off the charts. Anyway, so Sarunas eventually gets out. They let him out. He gets to go pursue his dreams. He's playing for Golden State, doing really well.
Yeah.
And then so obviously he's in contact with the Nelsons, with Don and his son. And they're like, we want to have a national team, but we got no money. Soviet Union took everything from us. Like we're trying to play. So this story ends up, because it's in Golden State in the Bay Area, this story gets out into the local papers, and some Grateful Dead fans, because it's in San Francisco, let the Grateful Dead know. They're like, hey man, like these Lithuanians are trying to play basketball and they got no money.
Grateful Dead's a big basketball fan?
Give them some bread, man. Yeah, Mickey Hart, apparently with the drummer, huge basketball fan. They're all from San Fran, right? So they grew up they grew up watching Golden State, and like they're down at UCLA. Berkeley's like right there. So anyway, they're like, oh shit, what happened? Something happened.
No, nothing. No, it's all good.
I heard something break. Anyway,
might have.
So anyway, so the Grateful Dead get a hold of the story, and they're like, we'll sponsor the team. So they sponsored the Lithuanian national team.
We'll play the halftime show.
To go to Barcelona, like paid for all their shit, bought their jerseys. So I don't know.
That's wild.
Wear that tie-dye Lithuania shirt.
Yeah.
That's what that's from. That was the shirt that they wore in the Barcelona Olympics.
That shirt's sick.
With like
I've seen like a couple people with it.
The dunking skeleton. Yeah. That's from the other dream team, which was the Lithuanian national team, and they actually won bronze.
Whoa.
They got dusted by the States, and then they beat like.
So they just won every game except for the Americans, and then they won.
Yeah,
bronze.
Like they won up their pool or whatever, and then they lost. Yeah. Then they lost, and they had to play the bronze game.
Yeah.
Against
Damn.
Like, so at that point I think Russia was actually, because it was disbanded, they came under like like, you know how some countries do like that other team where they're like, we're not representing any country. We're just like athletes of the world. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like there's
At the Olympics?
like an unrepresented company, yeah, or country. There's always like a small team where like either there's like turmoil in their country, or they're like
Okay.
refugees, or like that, or that
Yeah.
country was banned, but they were allowed as
Right.
individual athletes, they were allowed to still compete, but they couldn't be like, oh, we're Russia. Anyway,
Yeah.
Lithuania actually ended up playing them in the bronze game, and they won, and it was like as good as gold, like 100%.
Yeah.
That's what
Seriously.
all the Lithuanians say. They're like, this bronze medal after all that stuff, this is as good
Yeah.
as gold, because
Bronze is the new gold.
the states played Croatia and beat them like 120-60 or something, like disgusting.
Yeah. Fun game. Yeah. Good game.
But anyway,
Fun to watch.
that's the other dream team, and that's
Yeah,
just
that's
like,
sweet.
right,
And
like,
it's more like them achieving their dreams, right?
for
Like it's
sure,
not even like achieving their dreams, like not even just on the court.
100%.
Man, those types of stories are so interesting when like sports can transcend
Mhm.
just the actual sport, right?
Well, I think that's the
And
thing, right? You look at like,
or even people.
oh my gosh, for sure. You look at,
Yeah.
there's the states have a different view of sports, but in Canada anyway, anytime they're like trying to like look at the funding for sport, it's kind of
Mm.
hard to just say like, oh, like it's good exercise, right? Like you have to be like, the value of a sport is all this other stuff that's so important. Again, like we mentioned earlier, being able to be coached, cooperation with
Yeah.
other people, and that's team
Yeah.
sports, but you can also learn a lot from individual sports too, and like
Yeah.
self-reliance and
Discipline. Yeah.
discipline. 100% is
Organization.
huge. All
Yeah.
that stuff, and that's why anybody who's hiring, when they see an athlete, most of the time they're like, all right, cool, this person's going to probably fit in really well, especially if they
Yeah.
were like my boss right now. He used to play basketball at McMaster, so he just like,
Right.
as soon
Right.
as as soon
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
they're there, you just kind of get that, you get on that same level really quick. But
Mhm.
that's like, when they talk about that, that's what actually gets, like, what allows money to be funneled from stuff that's probably even more like even just as important, to be like,
Yeah.
all right, we're going to sponsor all this hockey and all this basketball and all this great stuff, and then maybe pull the funding every once in a while, but
Yeah.
um
I think the social aspect's huge, right?
yes,
For
yes.
sports, especially when they're younger. Because I was talking about this last night, but um, the kids with online learning,
Hmm.
right? So I teach grade 3, and like, yeah, it's really important that they learn English and math and that they learn science and
Sure.
like they're still getting those things through online learning. Maybe it's not the same. It's not like exactly, or they might not get like a full year's education, or it's a bit more challenging.
Right.
Um, but the social aspect is the thing that I'm so worried about for these kids, like that they're losing out on. Right. So my grade 3s now, um, like can just turn off their camera if they're upset. They don't have to deal with their emotions. Like they
Shoot.
can like just leave the call if someone's bothering them, like just these little things that I'm like, especially, grades 1, 2, 3, kindergarten, all that. It's so important for them to learn these social skills of how do I interact with my peers? How do I be respectful? What's okay? What's not okay?
Right.
How do I be a good person? How do I contribute to a community? And like, yeah, it's interesting because
Hmm.
I have a student that is probably like a little emotionally behind his peers,
Okay.
um, and yeah, he and we've talked about it. Like he'll get upset, he'll cry, and kids do that,
Hmm.
especially at that age. But it's more frequent with him, and then but now he'll like I'll notice he'll just be like, oh, I'm gonna turn off my camera. It's like, well, it's okay. Like it's okay that people see you upset, or it's okay to cry. Like it's
Right.
okay, right? But it's not okay to like just um, ignore why it's happening or just ignore it like it didn't
Right.
happen. Like it's not going to help them in the long run. So yes, I know it's a bit of a shift from sports to online learning or just to education, but I am concerned about the social aspect of that the pandemic is causing to education.
Oh my gosh, for sure. Well, I mean, obviously there's real concerns about some kids that have like, emotional issues and everything, but it's before you weren't able to hide from that stuff. And yes, it's embarrassing, and yes, it kind of sucks at that point. People are staring and whatever. But that's the kind of stuff, that's kind of where you learn that people appreciate you when you kind of hold it together, right? And then now when you're able to just like kind of like shut down, you're not going to be able to kind of challenge that and allow yourself to kind of grow, right? And again, that only comes, and all this social stuff only comes from actually being in the social scenario and potentially making the wrong decision, or potentially saying the wrong thing, or like doing something and everyone's like, oh, you're stupid for doing that. But that's how we also evolved as human beings, right? We're social characters. We need that input from other people, and we're wired. Our brain is wired. We have these mirror neurons and all this other stuff that when we see other people doing stuff, we can relate it back to ourselves really easily. We can feel other people's pain and other people's stuff, but that only happens kind of in person too. Is like a lot of this stuff, like even this is great. It's amazing that we're able to still connect and do a lot of stuff over video, but it's still missing so much of, and it's better than just straight on the phone. It's way better than texting. Like it's probably the next best thing, but it's kind of a far next to all the different cues you can get through emotion and body language and just like stuff that je ne sais quoi, that is just going to kind of come in between us, and you sense that, or just the room and all that stuff that you don't get from the video, right?
It's not the same when someone says, oh, like if something bad happens to you and someone says, that happened to like what? Sorry, like you're sorry that happened to me? Is that what you said? Like it's just not the same. And so we'll see. Hopefully it's over soon.
Sure, I know, right?
Like they talk about vaccines, so then the kids can go back, and hopefully they're not too hooked on video games. When I think about investing, I'm like, man, I should invest in video games. These kids are fiends. Like they are absolute fiends for video games.
Right.
Like,
well, and that's again, especially now you're stuck inside. Like, kind of, what else are you gonna do? I and even before quarantine, though, like I feel it just, and I maybe we sound like old fogies too, but being like, all these video games are ruining everybody, right? Because just like it can become this kind of like, it can become this fantasy world. Like, and there's all types of video games, let alone like Call of Duty and stuff. Whatever, but then like sometimes like kids get so upset, and there's like bullying through that, and then there's like the World of Warcraft kind of stuff, where it's like another world where you literally you start to kind of forget like regular reality. Like some of those games are so involved and so intense, and you're able to do so many things that if you are lacking control in your life and you get onto that, you're going to be like, look at all this control I have.
Right.
It's like,
but
not
what,
real.
What kid has like any control? Like what, and especially when it's being marketed, being like presented in a way that makes it easy, that makes it, desirable, that's almost like manipulative in terms of like the colors that they use, and the amount of time that they show a screen before switching to the next screen, because of they've done the research on attention span, and it only lasts this long, so we need to make sure we have cut scenes really quick. And
right.
Like our surveys tell us that we'll get 14% more participation in our online video game if we do this. Like it's wild, it's crazy, and it's certainly not fair to kids. But like the flip side of it is I think like we grew up with it. Like you talk about like crying. I remember crying over trading my Blastoise Pokemon to someone else. And true. I'll never forget it. I miss it to this day. But you know what I mean? Like I went home, I cried. I was probably older than I want to admit. And
I was in grade
I
10.
used to like I was very hooked on playing Diablo and
Yeah.
when I was in high school. So
Right.
I think I hope that, you know, if I could get through it, or if our generation got through, we had video games. So
Sure.
it's just that these kids, their video games are so much better. Like I hope that since we were able to kind of get through it and still function, that they will be too. Though
Sure.
it's not the exact same. It's kind of, you know, history repeats itself in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I'm coming from a place where I was never really into video games, and you know, and that's the thing. Like everyone's into their own thing. I'm not necessarily also saying that it's, you
I
know,
was an
across the
addict.
board doing this either. Yeah, but it's not like everyone who plays video games is going to be, you know, in trouble. It's just, again, I feel like to a lot of people that could have the potential of being great at other things, they might spend their
Yeah.
time playing video games instead, and then
Yeah.
it gives them a bit of a false sense of achievement, and then they might.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't want to say that this is across the board, but again, that you just have to be careful of knowing that the achievements in the game aren't real, but they give you but
Mm-hmm.
like you said, there's
Right.
psychologists
Yeah.
and stuff. There's all of this stuff built into the game that it's supposed to give you these rewards. It's
Yeah.
built in to give you all that. So it's, especially for a young person to look at that, like they don't know that
Yeah.
it's just like advertisements and stuff. Us as
Yeah.
adults, yeah, we realize they're trying to sell us stuff, and obviously they're going to try and sell us the most of whatever they're trying to sell us, right? Like no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
that's just how capitalism
Yeah.
works. But kids just look at it
Yeah.
and be like, yeah, this is something I'm supposed to have. It's not even like,
Yeah.
why do I want this, or like who's going to get it. It's just like, I need this or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing, and now because everyone's inside, I'm sure video game usage has gone up wild. And you know, even like you said, we've maybe like grown up out of it. There's tons of guys our age that are still playing hard. You know
Oh
what I
my
mean?
goodness. I was just thinking about that. Like I know some people, like their whole relationship has just like disappeared. Like, yeah, like not to put anyone else specifically, but like they was engaged, and it wasn't just video games. Obviously there's always other things that go on, but like played video games like crazy. They are not engaged
Oh
anymore. They are
no.
not together anymore. Like, you know, it's just, and
Right.
again, it's not just video games, but it certainly contributes when you go to work, you come home and you play video games for 3 hours
Sure.
when you only have like, what, 5 hours left in the day after work, you only, depending on when you go to bed, like,
Yeah.
or then there's the, you know, and that's just the social aspect, but then there's the health aspect of like, okay, I'm playing video games till 2 a.m. So now like my circadian rhythm is all off,
Sure.
and you know, my sleep patterns are all off,
Yep.
and I'm getting terrible sleep, which leads to, you know, whatever, like weight gain, emotional, like, like
Yeah.
just kind of freaking out or napping on people, like all of these different things. So
For sure.
um, yeah, it can be a snowball effect. So.
Yeah. And of course, you know, everything in excess can have those kind of side effects too. And
Right. Yeah.
but again, just like we
Yeah,
said,
you do with
over and
sports
over,
too.
it's meant to just keep you in and keep you driving and do all these things to keep you coming back and
Yeah.
to keep you playing. So I think all
Yeah.
that stuff, it's just you gotta educate people and just know that, hey, these are designed to keep you hooked, you know, and it's working
Yeah.
it's working on pathways in your brain that are very similar to like addictive, you know, other
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, whether it's drug or
Sugar,
behavior, other
drugs. Yeah.
addictive behaviors. So
Hmm.
that's, again, you just kind of have to be aware of that as much as you can, but
Yeah. Man,
it's
it's
still
such
that
a,
people love playing Madden.
yeah. Yeah. It's such a weird thought, but like to think that, and like it's gonna be even crazier with VR, but like to think that I can be all consumed by like this little window, this tiny screen, and there'd
Yeah.
be so much going on. Like if I'm playing a World of Warcraft or something, like there is a whole world there, and
Right.
involved in it. Like
Yeah.
it is, if you slowly back up and just take a look at your life and what's around you, there is so much more going on. And to think that I was consumed by something that's like maybe this
Yeah.
big,
Yeah.
like all consumed, like there was, like I couldn't hear other things, I didn't see other things.
Sure.
And then yeah, I just, whenever I think about that, or even on Instagram, like sometimes I'll be like on my phone and I'll just be like down here and I'm like, right now my world is only this big.
Yeah.
But
For
if
sure.
I really think about it, like, and take a step back, there is so much more going on. Look at the amount of detail in this tree. Look at the amount
Right.
of like craziness around me.
Right.
But some people like just live in a world this big
Sure.
for 70 to 90% of their day.
Right.
It's crazy. Like it's absolutely mind blowing.
Sure. And even and that even sometimes goes with just people's life, right? Like their perspective is so narrow. They're just
Yeah.
focusing on
Yeah.
such a narrow bandwidth of life that they're missing out on so much more experience, right? And I feel that a lot of judgment comes out of that too, right? Because you, through your narrow bandwidth, or what a person who's focusing on that super narrow part of life, if they
Yeah.
somehow observe someone that comes into their view that is like living outside that, they don't understand it. And
Right.
it's tough, and again, that's where the criticism and the hate and all that stuff comes from,
Yeah.
is because they just don't understand it.
I think this is kind of where you're going, but like it feeds into like the increase in anxiety and depression more so in North America,
Sure.
because this is all you're focused on. Then you're not. Then when you look at someone on Instagram and they come into this small world and they're doing something cool,
Yeah.
you're only focused on your small narrow view, and so you think like, oh, my life sucks. But no, widen that view. Think about like someone who's whatever got COVID, someone who's sick, someone who's homeless, someone
Right.
who's doesn't have like just lost their job, whatever, right? And so then you start to like expand that,
Yeah.
and then you have appreciation, then you feel like more lucky, you show more gratitude. But
Right.
when your view is so narrow, you're lacking, you are like negative, you are anxious, right?
Right.
Like
Right. Right. Right.
other people's lives are better, they have more. Like, no,
Right.
if you have a cell phone, you are already one of the richest people on the planet. Like,
Mm-hmm. Well,
so
I was reading Anthony Robbins' book, Awake the Giant Within, and he talks about something like that, where you got to try your best to shift that perspective, just completely
yeah.
change. He was talking about, he had like an overeating problem, I guess, at one point, and he couldn't not like eat everything that was on his plate. And so what he
Yeah.
did is he trained himself. He put on his favorite music. He got himself in a comfortable position, and he trained just like pushing the plate away with food on it,
Yeah.
pushing it away, and
And
like
he
turning
associated
that
it.
into like a good thing, right? And being
Yeah.
like, this
He
is good. This is
associated it
good for
with
myself,
positive things that he liked.
right? And this is good for myself. This is good for my. It's not me giving up or not being able to finish it or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And that's simple as just doing that, but there's so many other things that can apply itself to, right? Is
Yeah.
that, how many behaviors in our life are
Yeah.
negatively driven, or I'm
Yeah.
doing this because I didn't do this, or I didn't get this, or I'm beating myself up. And I mean, like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, like I
You
haven't
need
asked
them.
this of all my athlete friends, but I feel like that's a big part of being an athlete, is there can be a lot of self-talk, and sometimes that is like can get negative, right? Because depending on
Right.
how you motivate yourself, sometimes it can be
Yeah.
like, keep going, like, don't fucking give up, pussy, like bad,
Yeah.
like tough talk,
Yeah.
but it's motivating and it gets the stuff done. And I feel like
Which,
sometimes once we've left sport, that talk
yeah.
still
Yeah.
remains and it's still
Yeah.
there. And that's something that potentially, as all ex-athletes, we have to work on. And
Yeah.
because I'm probably very guilty of it, and just even
Yeah.
unaware of it most of the time, that most of my self-talk is like rough,
Yeah.
and
And
that
it
just
goes
comes
back
from.
to,
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, it just goes back to like what I was saying. Like, I don't know what the right answer is for a good psychology, because I had that as
Right.
well. But
Right.
if it goes too far, then you're just like, you're beating yourself up to the point that you hate the sport, or that like you quit.
Yep.
So, but it's also like drives your competitiveness. So you
Yeah.
need it, but you need it under control. You don't need too much of it.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I think about these guys in the NBA and their egos, like, I'm just assuming, but based on like the tweets and posts and conversations I hear, like their egos sound insanely huge. I don't
Right.
think I would enjoy hanging out with a large percentage of them, because
Sure.
they're quite like egotistical. But you need that. Like, you need to
Yeah.
be so full of yourself to be able to shoot that game-winning shot, or to be able to perform on a stage like that without being anxious or nervous that
Sure.
you're going to let down your parents, or that you're going to lose your contract. Like, so I think like a huge ego is like helpful in
Mhm.
some aspects, but I'm certainly not playing in the NBA, so I try and like, I don't think it's as helpful for someone like me.
Well, it's almost interesting because it's like you kind of you mentioned it briefly there, but it's almost like we didn't like yeah, it can get too negative and then you're just beating yourself up, but we almost don't even want to entertain the fact that it could be um if we talk to ourselves positively, that could be like all this power that becomes like unlocked essentially. And like maybe like our deep
And
self like this is deep, but like our deep
yeah,
subconscious is like, and this is what a lot of people say, is that what we're most afraid of is like our potential and like what we could
right.
actually do. And that negative talk is potentially part of the ego keeping us down a little bit and saying, if you allow yourself to talk to yourself positively and love yourself, that
Mhm.
you won't be able to do as much as this negative viewpoint. But really, we don't
Yeah,
even know because we've never even really got into that realm. And then you say some of these guys that are
yeah,
like that are really successful, they're like egotistical, but more so maybe that they've just grown up that way, naturally gifted that way. Someone taught them that positive mindset and that positive perspective, and being like, yes, I am the best. It does actually potentially lead to success, potentially. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Which is
yeah.
interesting. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there like that just beat themselves up, and it's just all this negative talk, and they don't even really give,
Mhm.
even if it was like 10 minutes a day of just being like, hey man, like you're cool, like people like you, like,
Yeah, yeah,
or you know what, fuck, who cares if people like you, like, hey, you're like a good person
right.
and like you love
You
yourself,
like
and like I
yourself.
like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And I feel like
yeah,
people, and I don't do that enough or ever, or I don't even know when I think about it, but
yeah,
I think that it comes from little things you can do for yourself, little behaviors, and give yourself
yeah,
time here and there, and like indulgements and pleasure and stuff. But
yeah,
that whole mindset of like, this isn't, I'm not just doing that, and because sometimes you can do something nice for yourself, and all of a sudden that's followed up with like, why the hell did you do that? Like, why'd you eat that
right.
fucking piece of
Yeah,
cake? Like,
yeah.
it's like, oh, I'm gonna
Man,
be
I
nice, I'm gonna enjoy this because I like the taste of this or whatever, and then all of a sudden
yeah,
right away it's like, you fat fuck, like what are you
yeah,
doing? You know what I mean?
he's yeah,
But you can't.
and
Yeah.
because I think, and when I was in high school, man, and maybe it was, you couldn't notice it as much, but my self-talk was so negative. Like, man, I was so deeply, and this is part of the reason I didn't really enjoy high school, is like, I think back and I'm like, I wasn't ready, or I don't know, it wasn't where I wanted to be yet. So like,
Hmm.
it's deeply insecure about so many things. Like, I couldn't, scared to tell any secret. I would hold on to it to my grave. Like, if something embarrassing happened and no one else saw it, no one else is ever going to hear about it.
Yeah.
Right. And I would just hold on to it. And it took so long. It took meeting some really great people, having some really interesting conversations, but, uh, and it still like happens all the time. But I think that it's gotten to such a good point now where, like, literally yesterday I was like, opened my fridge and it was full of food, and I was like, wow, I'm so like, a fridge full of food, I'm a pretty lucky guy, like, you know
Sure.
um and it's gotten to a much better place, but it's still it's still something to deal with, and it takes so long, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. Like we
For
talked
sure.
about Tony Robbins, and he's the master of it. He's the master of teaching it and helping people with it and changing your habits, improving them, right? But it takes so long, and you need to be patient with yourself, and you need to like be forgiving, and it's such a process. But
Sure.
but there certainly is a need for the negative talk. Like it is necessary. It's funny because I was playing pickup yesterday, and I was doing quite well. I was getting buckets, right? Like I probably got like 4 points in a row.
Oh yeah.
And then I like missed like a tough shot, and I just like screamed at myself. I was like, "You suck, you bum!" And like all these other people are not that I was playing with were not don't play a lot of basketball. They're like weekend warriors, just go play a little bit of pickup. And to them, I probably look like a psychopath. Like they're just like having fun. They're airballing. They're missing over the backboard. Like, and they're not getting down on themselves. Like that guy should be super down on himself,
Right.
But it certainly like it can drive a bit of competitiveness,
Sure.
whether it is good or bad,
Sure.
or whether it would be better if you just fully accepted yourself and just did it all with love. I don't know, but it just made me think of yesterday when I'm like screaming at myself during pickup, and these guys are all like laughing, joking, and can't even do a layup. So
yeah. Well, again, it just again continues to harken back to perspective change, right? And that we came from playing sports where you have to, like, when we're playing at the levels that we played at, it wasn't really about like fun, right? And like those guys playing pickup, that you're playing pickup, they're out to have fun. But like it's really hard for us not to like touch a basketball or be on a court and not get into that mode and be like, all right, like this is like there's a seriousness. Like how many teams you play, like just get serious. Like this isn't about like no one ever really said this isn't about fun, but that was just implied. Like,
I've heard people say that. Yeah,
well, for sure.
I've heard coaches say that. Like,
for sure. There you go. So if it wasn't implied, it was explicit, and it was like, this is serious. The only way you're going to improve is if you get serious and you're not mess around and you're not joke and you have fun. But then at the same time, if you're having fun, maybe you're going to be looser. Maybe that'll make some decisions a little bit easier. You won't have these consequences weighing on your head that like, oh, if I don't take this, if I miss this shot, like my life is over. Rather than like, if I miss a shot, no big deal. There's going to be thousands of other chances that we'll continue to get. And if we stay loose and have fun, maybe we'll be successful. But that's just Tony Robbins, all these people, it's about that perspective shift, right? And that's the hardest part, because you get in these grooves and you just like keep doing the same thing and same behaviors, and that's just reinforced by other thoughts, and then those thoughts are reinforced by behaviors, and those it just keeps going on forever, right? And kind of even like that's how a lot of people talk about like psychedelics, right? Like psilocybin is like eating mushrooms essentially is like if your mind is like a ski hill. It's like near the end of the day, there's been a lot of runs, there's all these like routes that are carved in, and then when you go down the ski hill as a skier, you're probably going to go into one of these grooves and go down the ski hill. Doing psychedelics is like an avalanche just came down that ski hill, and now you can go and it's all smooth. You can go any pathway you want. You can go any direction you want.
I hear you.
You can go right back into those old grooves if you'd like, or you can completely go somewhere else new, right? And that meditation, you can get there too. And that's that thing, is that reset. But so many people aren't, again, they're so entrenched in these grooves that they don't even realize that there is a groove. You know what I mean? And that's the hardest part. And that's the thing, is that if you can, and I think art tries to do that, tries to give different perspectives, and then just like pursuit of knowledge and all that stuff is about trying to gain perspective. And I think a lot of the negative aspects in life and fighting and all the politics stuff that goes on is because people aren't willing to entertain other people's perspectives, right? They're not willing to go, okay, how does how is this person experiencing life versus me or whatever, because we are all in this together. We are all humans and we're all people trying to figure this out. And we chastise each other because one person has one type of thought, but like really, you know, everyone needs to have their say. That doesn't mean everything's true, because some people that are way off, they still need to have their say, but they need to be able to be heard for others to go, listen, it's not quite like that. Let's bring it back. But the thing is that we kind of,
or not even that it's not quite like that. It's like, I don't quite agree with that. Like, like I don't see it that way. Right. And like, I would just wish more people were open-minded like that. Like I get so uncomfortable. I get so frustrated when I see people that are just like, no, like, I will not listen to your side of it. You're wrong. There's no other possible answer. Like, you know everything. Like, you are a super genius, smartest person on the planet. Like, you could, like, for me, I always think you could be correct or you are correct. This is what I think. But tell me your side, because I want to hear it to see if maybe I've been wrong this whole time, or maybe, you know, that makes sense. This doesn't. Maybe I'm going to tweak my opinion, but I'm still, you know, but when people just kind of set their feet in the ground and they go, I'm here, you're there, and we can never see eye to eye, like it blows my mind. And it doesn't seem like a positive atmosphere for anything productive.
Well, and those are the same people that see things black and white, and if it's not one way, it's another. And those are the same people that say, hey, if I can't, I'm not going to start playing guitar if I'm not going to be a rock star, kind of thing, right? And it's like, there's millions of perspectives, and there's so many different facets to every aspect of life. And I think that, again, like you said, when you give another person a chance to allow their thoughts to be brought to the table, you know, you can say, listen, like, that's a part of the story, but there's so much more that you're missing. Or yes, that's the missing piece that everyone was looking for, right? But we gave this person a chance that maybe they're on the fringes, and we actually gave them a chance, and then that helped connect all these dots or whatever, right? But again, because there's so many different facets, we tend to just, you know, limit the extremes and try and look down the middle as much as we can. And that's just not how life is. Like, clearly life isn't black and white. There's so many gray zones. There's so many other colors that are amazing, and different experiences that if we don't give other people a chance, like one of my favorite quotes, I believe, is Aristotle said, the mark of an intelligent mind is being able to entertain a thought without accepting it. And I think so many people are afraid of even just entertaining thoughts and just being like, all right, well, what if X, Y, Z, all these different things that people are just afraid of even going down that route, because they think, oh, if I think that way, then that's going to shatter my worldview, or who even knows what's actually holding them back, right? But I feel like that's just something that I feel like everyone can continue to work on too, right? Is that just like that perspective change and understanding that there's so many different experiences to life, and no one's going to be on the same level as you, like, all the time, and that's okay, right? And
some people like that quality in other people. They like that they're willing to, like, completely stand for something and not hear anything else, you know, like, oh, I'm gonna support whoever, like Trudeau, because he's making a stance. He's not going to say anything, you know, like, some people really get behind that. And like, I don't know if they are just like kind of attracted to the confidence, or if it's like a quality they don't see in themselves, or I can understand why people like that quality, but it's not always helpful. I don't think usually it's not helpful. I don't think.
Well, again, you know, I think we lose sight of the fact that we're all part of this one big thing that's going on, whether it's just like human experience, or whether that's the collective unconscious or morphic resonance. We're all sharing this experience together. And I think we forget that my experience is just as much a part of yours as yours is a part of mine. And that goes for literally everybody on the planet. And that person is living and living a life that you are living vicariously through them because we're the same. I know it's kind of confusing, but because we're the same, every person out there is living that same life. So when you see a hobo on the street and you're like, oh man, that must suck. Yeah, it sucks for you because that person is you and they're living that life. But then also that person who climbs a mountain or scores a winning shot or whatever, you're also part of that. And you know, you're living, you can experience that vicariously through them. And but again, everyone gets so bogged down and so focused on their own individual experience, and it's hard not to. Like, obviously there's so many things in this life, in this reality, that makes us focus on the individual. But in those moments where we can remember that we're part of this vast universe, that's really special. And but that's something that's really hard to do day in and day out too, right? You know, you got to go to a job, you got to do this and that. There's certain things where your ego kind of does come into play, and it does guide you in the correct fashion. But again, and each individual is experiencing this different. Some individuals like are fairly detached from their ego, and some people are so attached that they don't even really understand, right? And you know, trying your hardest to kind of keep getting back to that, you know, that's what we want to do.
Like, I love talking about this stuff. I love listening to you talk about it too, because you obviously, like, you know, you read up about it a lot, you got a lot of interesting ideas. But it makes me think of, have you heard, I can't remember the name of the album, but one of Logic's older albums where with Neil deGrasse Tyson, where it's like you have to live, the idea is that you live life as each person. So when you die, you come back and you live life now as this person. And once you've lived the life of everyone, then you like kind of become a god, or like you become this like status.
Ascend the next level kind of thing.
Super cool.
Well,
it's a cool idea.
I heard a really interesting thought that why our population keeps increasing on the planet, because that whole idea, like, there'd have to be a stable population, but why is it increasing is because this point in history in the universe is so wild, and there's so many things happening that all these beings are incarnating as humans, like from all over like the multiverse. They're like, yo, we got to get to Earth 619 or whatever. Like,
Earth, we're just a sick party.
C518.
We're a sick party. Everyone's invited.
Trump was prezi. It was wild.
BYOB. Bring your own booze. Do your thing. Yeah. And all the entities all over the
bring your
universe
own being.
Are like, bring your own being. Yeah. It's going down on Earth. Then they get here, and then it's a pandemic, and they can't do anything.
And then they're like, "Oh shit, let's die." Yeah. But and then that's how you get onto the next incarnation, man.
They're just quick decision makers. I like that.
But again, if that's that thought, I mean, there's a little bit of that where my experience, even on the easiest level, that my experience does affect your experience somehow. You know, whatever that is. If we continue to think about that a little bit more rather than the other way around, right? Everyone's always like, oh, this guy did this to me, all this stuff. Well, yeah, there's going to be external events that happen. It's really the only thing you can control is how you react to those events, right? There's going to be stuff you can't control whether those events are going to be positive or negative, but you can control how you take that in and you move through it. Let it pass. If it's a negative event, let it pass through you. If it's a positive event, take the values from it and learn. Negative event, take the values from it and learn, and continue to move on. But you know, people get bogged down. They focus on that negativity, or even in the other aspect, they can focus on the positive and too much and sit on their laurels and be like, oh yeah, I used to do all this. I used to be sick. But again, that whole can take the good and the yin yang aspect. There is some good, bad, and there is some bad and good, and understand that there's a balance, and that life is a balance, and everything will always kind of tip back and want to be at that equilibrium. And it's hard to see that at that cosmic scale, right? Like, that's such a big we talk about
the dark times.
Sure.
Yeah, it's hard to see that balance or know that it's going to come back. It's going to bounce back. Like,
but there can't be dark without light, and there can't be light without
Yeah.
dark. You know, that needs to exist off each other for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've definitely talked about this before, but I don't think I've ever asked it in this way.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on, like, why does it feel so good to work hard? You know what I mean? Like you get that feeling like, oh man, today was such a productive day, or like I got this done, and this.
Right.
Or you go like, I didn't get anything done, or I didn't do this, and I feel like shitty or lazy or like, you know, self-loathing, whatever.
Sure. Well,
why does hard work feel good?
Yeah, I think that when you're doing that hard work, number one, you can't help but see the fruits of it happening. You know, you're seeing some results right there in front of you, especially if you have some type of goal. You know, it's really good to kind of you know, feel that you are contributing to that goal 100%. And I think that right, and growing and continuing, I think that that's just something about people, is that there's something in us that we have, like there is an innate drive to continue to do stuff. Whether we act on that or not is another story. Like some people just don't act on that drive, and then that doesn't bother them. But then there's some people that, you know, we have that drive, and it's like, if I don't do something, I'm going to feel disappointed that I didn't. Right?
Yeah.
Like you're saying. And then I think that there's some good and bad in that, right? Because it's gonna continue to push and push and push. But I think you can also get into that whole mindset of just pushing, and then all of a sudden you're not taking time to appreciate what you've actually created too, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think some people just have that drive, and I think it just makes them feel good to accomplish stuff. And I think, you know, as ex-athletes, that's really driven into us with like trophies and like winning tournaments. There's like these actual like steps, and there's like always really like tangible stuff that you can hold, like in a martial art. I'm sure it's the same. You're literally upgrading to this new belt. Like it's giving you a tempo where life doesn't really have. It's sometimes like, there's like work aspirations, and like maybe get married and maybe have a kid. Like there's certain goals like that, but then even once those are achieved, there's usually tons of life left. And that's the thing, is that people don't, once they get all these goals achieved, they're kind of like, oh shit, like now what? And then they're either just go, or they're just kind of like unhappy, and like they're like, oh, I'm just doing the same thing over and over again, and blah blah blah. But that's what you worked for, and that's what you always wanted. It's about then reframing that idea and being like, okay, this is, whether it's a new aspiration, whether it's a new goal, or just like, you know, life isn't about those like stepping stones per se. You know, it's about experiencing life and like experiencing what you're doing kind of right now. And then the more you love your experience of now and living in the present, I feel like that only opens up opportunities. And if you're open and aware to those opportunities, then you'll be able to choose that path a little bit more. And that might seem reactionary. That might seem like you're kind of letting life happen to you. But I think if you're enjoying if you're truly living life in the not like in the now and enjoying it, that it will not only attract things to you, but again, when those doors open up, you'll be in a better place to recognize that and go forward, rather than forcing doors open and being like, I need to do this because this is what you do to do this. You go to school to do this, and you get a house to do this, right? And so many people just
value in this
blindly go down that road, and then all of a sudden they find themselves at the end of it going like, shit, now what? Right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like, how have you felt? I guess what I was gonna say before is like, I think it's almost like a reward, right?
Sure,
like it's like you're given this gift of like a life, and you can literally do whatever you want pretty much.
Yeah.
And then when you do things, or you're productive, or you like, you know, take advantage of the gift, then you get this reward of like this good feeling of like, oh man, I was productive today. Like I just feel better, you know, or, you know, I worked really hard. I feel good.
Right.
And there's definitely times where I was just like work, and I did not feel good. Like it was just too much. Right. So it goes back to like that balance.
Sure.
But how have you felt since starting the podcast? Have you been enjoying it, or
It's really cool.
has it just been a bunch of extra work?
I mean, it's been fun. I love that little bit extra. I mean, right now, with our lead singer taking her vocal rest right now, we haven't done a lot with the band, so I haven't been like
Yeah.
overly busy with that. I've still been jamming with some buds, and
Yeah.
doing stuff with Mike.
Yeah.
Like I was telling you before, actually tonight I'm going to track some bass stuff with Mike, and
Yeah.
so still working, but I really enjoy this. I've had enough people kind of tell me like, hey man, like you should start a podcast, or like, I think you'd
Yeah.
have a good one.
I think so.
And it was always something like I thought about doing. And so far it's been rewarding. It's been cool. I'm really looking forward to like starting to get like other guests on, like, because I'll have my friends on all the time. I'll continue to always have my friends on. And that's always going to be great, and those are always going to be super fun combos. But I'm looking forward to, hopefully, once things get a little bit bigger, that I can get other guests in here that are kind of strangers, or and have
that
even
are
bigger
more important than
conversations.
me. Wow.
No.
Okay.
Yes,
Bigger deals than
exactly. That are way
Good
cooler
luck finding someone.
and way more interesting to talk to.
I have. Well, 1 second. Let me tell you, I have 317 followers on Instagram. So good luck finding anyone. That's right. Yeah. I average about 90 likes.
Man, I don't know how I'm going to find someone better than that. I might as well just have you on every episode.
You won't. You should stop podcasting, or you should have me on.
This is the last episode of the Bigmark podcast.
You peaked. You peaked early.
We're going to go out like Seinfeld.
Yeah.
We're going to go out on top.
Hey, that's what this is.
But no, I mean, like, I think it's a lot of fun, and there's work to it for sure. But I think, it's about, again, identifying what you need to do and continue on. And I think some people are able to do that a little bit easier than others. And, I always used to say this with music, that like, everyone's always like, oh, it'd be so cool to be like a musician and all this stuff. It's like, you kind of just have to do it. Like, there's no real difference between me and anyone else, other than the fact that I'm like kind of just doing it. Like, practicing and stuff is part of that. But that's a part of doing it. If you're not practicing, if you're not playing, you're not really doing it. So it's almost like anything in life, like, honestly, like, again, it's just like talking about like becoming an adult. It's like no one really knows what they're doing. They just pretend that they do.
Ever. Yeah.
Right?
Ever.
Like, even like so many like teachers and coaches and all this stuff, they just pretend like they know what they're doing, and you're like, okay, I guess this person knows, but they're probably just as lost.
Wild.
Right? So
it's wild seeing the other side, like to be coached by Jamie, and now to coach with Jamie, and being like, whoa, you're not sure about this? Like, you're
just guessing
yourself, or like whatever. You're asking me, like, or whatever. And then the same with like, my first job, I was working at a call center.
Yeah.
And obviously I've called into call centers before, and I'm like, they obviously know, they work there. They must know.
Right.
And me just being like, yeah. Oh yeah.
I
think so. I mean, I know so. It's 17. Yeah. Like just, and then them being like, are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Like,
sure.
And then, now with teaching, like, I feel very much like I found like a profession that fits my personality, and that suits me very much. But there's still times where I'm like, I don't know, like, I have no idea, like, or that's a great question. Like, I don't know why that is, but yeah.
Well,
again, don't know anything.
I think that comes from maturity, and like, as a child, right, you look up and because you don't really understand everything, you look at the person telling you, like, teaching you things, that they're like the authority, right?
Teachers, I thought, knew everything. Like, I thought they were like the smartest people on the entire planet.
Yeah. Trust me, some of my buddies who are teachers right now, man, like, you look back and you're like, I've had these people as teachers, and you never really thought twice. But you're like, these guys are jokesters or whatever. They're having fun still. It's like they're young guys, like, getting after it. Like, right? It's just like, and they're also molding young minds.
Yeah,
Right.
I told you about my my grade 8 teacher.
Yeah.
It was the first time I ever had a male teacher,
Okay.
and I really enjoyed it because he was like sporty and like
Cool.
again my first male teacher, and he was
Cool.
pretty like relaxed. But he came in on a Monday and he had like a black eye, and I think he said like he ran into a wall or like whatever the typical like this is what happened. He was for sure at the bar, got in a fight and got knocked out or something. Like for sure,
100%.
100%. And I look back at it, and he was like, "Oh, you ran into a wall? Like, oh damn, like it's weird that it's crazy. Like, I should watch out for those walls."
Yeah, watch out, they pop up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, right. Like that's the thing. Again, even doing this stuff and. You just decide even when we were kids, man, like our parents just were like, yeah, this he's going to play basketball, right? It's just, you just start making these decisions, and certain things when you're younger, you get a leg up on the competition and stuff. But like, honestly, anyone can do whatever they want to do. They just have to do it and get over all those humps. And obviously it's easier said than done for a lot of stuff, but get over those humps that are holding you down and scaring you. Because they're really just in your mind. Because, like I said, when I was starting this, I'm worried about like, oh, am I going to have enough people to talk to? Like, are people going to listen? Whatever. And all of a sudden, people are reaching out, being like, hey, man, this is a great idea. Like, I can't wait to hear them and all this stuff. So, like, those are the people that you're supposed to care about. All the other people that you're worried about that might be fabricated in your mind, that might not even be real. And even if they are 100% out there, who cares? It's all about the people who are supporting you and wanting you. The same with music. It was the same with, when you were playing sports, you wanted people that you cared about to support you. But again, it wasn't about the haters, because, you wouldn't, no one would be able to do anything if we were just worried about being criticized and all that stuff. And even when when I was doing stuff, playing with the jazz band and Jamie was like, man, like that took a lot of balls and stuff. I didn't really look at it like, oh, this is like a courageous thing. I was just like, oh, this is something I'd like to do. And when you play music, you kind of have to play it in front of people, because that's what it's meant to do. And if it just so happens to be like your entire high school, then so be it. Like, you got to do what you got to do. But it's just how other people are going to view it in so many different ways too.
Yeah. And I would add the caveat that, like, yes, you go do anything, but there are going to be things that you are like better at, or that you have more strengths towards. Like, you're going to, so everyone's going to have those lumps and bumps and, tough times, but it will come naturally to some people more than others based on their personality strengths, whatever. But I totally agree that like anyone could do anything. If I wanted to totally switch it up and try to become, I don't know, like a big ski head and like ski instructor, like I could do that. It would take a long time, because all I know
might be tough to get a gig in the Bahamas though.
It would be, but it's a niche. It's very niche.
You could talk to the Jamaican bobsled team.
But again, I think it can be done. It just some people naturally be quicker to pick things up.
And if I can correct myself too, I totally agree. You can do anything you want to do, and if you can find that what makes you happy and what you're good at, then pursue that. I'm not just saying, if things aren't working out, don't just keep pursuing, because you can do anything. You're able to do that, but to find something you're good at and successful, you got to look deep down. You got to find what resonates with you, and then pursue that, and then not worry about the haters and stuff. But don't just willy-nilly pursue shit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but
I agree.
Sweet.
Yeah, man. Seriously,
well, I think that's what time is it? 12:21. I think that's a solid place to start to end, I should say. It's great.
No, let's get going. Let's start up.
That's a good place to start. No, it is.
That's
what I mean.
What's your first question?
From here on, it's a good place for everybody, right? If anyone's listening and is dealing with anything, struggling with something or starting something new, like we said, if that resonates with you, keep pushing, keep going, because you got to sometimes you can't wait. you can't strike when the iron's hot. Sometimes you got to make the iron hot by striking, and you got to get after it. You know what I mean? Anything you want to shout out?
Yeah.
Anybody you want to say hey, or something that's going on in your life you want to tell everybody about?
Nothing too crazy right now.
Nice.
But I do miss I would obviously shout out like my friends and family back home, missing everyone in Canada, especially
miss you
because
too,
we won't
buddy.
be able to come home for Christmas. Yeah, seriously. I'd love to be home for Christmas and seeing everyone, but I think I'll just suntan instead.
Hey, not bad. How's the weather there today? How hot is it?
It's like 28 or something like that.
Oh no,
sunny.
Bro, unreal.
It's nice. We're in a good spot right now, so the weather should be nice for the next couple of weeks.
It's 1 degree here in Hamilton.
1 degree. Hey, better than 0.
Hey, 28 times better in the Bahamas. Yeah. But anyway, thanks for chatting, buddy. Thanks everyone for listening.
Anytime.
Everyone follow along. Tell all your friends about it. Look us up on Twitter at the Bigmark Pod. Follow us on Instagram. All that good stuff. And we'll see you soon. Cheers. Hey, buddy.
Later.